What is going on, guys? In today's video I will show you the top 3 best mage builds in part of Exile 2 0.3 update. So in this guide I will give you a quick overview of each setup, then I will explain what skill gems and upgrades should you focus on, then as well we'll see what is the best gear and how to get it, and then finally we will go over the passive skill tree, the stats, skill rotations, and even what atlas passive should you use, so we would be able to get the highest damage possible and much more. And remember, if you want to try any of these builds out, then check my links in the description. And before we continue, thanks to U4GM. They are a pro website that provides PoV2 services like cheap currency, then even to trade all types of quality items and gems and much more. They have also more than 20,000 positive comments on Trustpilot, and this website is really worth a try. So make sure to use my discount code KAID for extra 6% off. This is a Chaos Lich build that focuses on combining Essence Chain and Contagion together to create a devastating spread of damage over time while summoning Dark Effigy for totems to annihilate bosses and tough rares. Essence Chain serves as your primary single target tool, dealing high chaos dot damage that scales with every investment, while Contagion will spread that damage across the entire packs, chaining from monster to monster until the screen is wiped clean. The Dark Effigy amplifies single target damage by multiplying projectiles based on the number of active dots, which makes it incredibly strong for the boss encounters. What makes the build exceptional is how well rounded it is. Offensively, it delivers one of the best sustained chaos dots in the game, without relying on complicated rotations, and then defensively, the Lich Ascendancy provides a massive energy shield pull, while the Soulless form converts life regeneration into the mana regeneration, giving your build almost unshakable sustain. The Eternal Life locks your health in a place with the energy shield, while mitigating damage and creating a near constant safety buffer. Then also we get additional tools like the Ravenous form for the poison effects and the Desecrated Focus mod for the extra spell totems enhanced by the Dark Effigy's power, while thoughtful stat allocations and defensive layers will ensure that this build is safe, efficient and highly scalable. So in short, this Chaos Witch build will clear maps very fast, melt bosses and survive in the fights that would destroy other Chaos builds. So let's take a look at our skill gems, which is the heart of this build. Essence Chain is the core of this setup by providing sustained chaos damage that scales over time. Paired with the Contagion, it creates the signature screen-wide chain reaction by turning just 2 casts into a wave of destruction that spreads automatically across the enemy packs. While clearing speed may be slower than some projectile-heavy setups, the payoff is enormous, as enemies will slowly melt in sequence. Then for tougher targets, the Dark Effigy totem takes the spotlight. These totems will scale the number of damage over time effects on a target, meaning that stacking Essence Chain, Contagion, Despair and the Poison makes the Effigy volleys do super high DPS to the bosses. The main limitation, however, is their fragility, so careful placement behind one line of sight or near terrain is essential to keep them firing. Then our support gem setup will drive the build's efficiency. In 6 links, priority goes to the Dark Effigy first, then the Essence Chain and finally Contagion. Contagion will benefit greatly from quality for wider spread, and other gems like Despair, Temporal Chains and the Essence Chains also will scale well with the quality. The new Ravenous Swarm gem is especially OP, allowing Dark Effigy to apply poison without the extra support, though it requires additional spirit from the gear. The Essence Chain support can be adjusted for the tougher bosses, or swapping Chain and Intense Agony for the Chain element and Deliberation that boosts single target output. In the early game, I recommend to keep Contagion at a very low level, that will help you to manage mana, but once a 6th link with the Arcane Surge is ready, then level it until it costs you over a third of your total mana for the optimal uptime. Then our utility gems will add flexibility, so by using our second weapon and getting the Sigil of Power, it will boost the boss damage significantly, especially when Effigy is active. And then finally, the Bone Storm used with the Visage of Aya will let you intentionally drop to low life after death to activate the passive bonuses. Then next we have our passive tree, and for this character we have one goal, to amplify our chaos damage over time, while building a hybrid defense that combines energy shield with a life sustain. On the damage side, we'll take clusters that give us chaos stat multipliers, increased chaos damage and the skill duration. These nodes are the backbone of the Essence Chain scaling. The extra duration doesn't just make Essence Chain last longer, it also keeps Contagion chains alive, letting them ripple farther into a pack before expiring. Then the cast speed nodes are another quiet powerhouse. Even though they don't directly boost your dots, they make the combo smoother and also raise Dark Effigy's projectile output. So our defensive structure is equally important. You'll be investing heavily into the energy shield, building up a massive pool that acts as your first line of defense. At the same time, you want to take enough life and regeneration nodes to fuel the Soulless Form mechanic, which converts life into your mana regeneration. This is exactly what keeps your spell sustainable even in the longer fights. Eternal Life will ensure that your life value is effectively locked in a place, which is what turns normally dangerous bypass mechanics into a form of mitigation instead. Then also you can see that I've invested into the curse effectiveness and efficiency. Despair is a core part of this build's single target output, and strengthening its debuffs will play a huge role. Likewise, taking mana efficiency clusters will prevent from running into awkward downtime in a fight, where you'd otherwise be waiting to regenerate before casting again. Then next up, gearing priorities are straightforward but important. The Azarus Disdain is the standout unique for this build. It synergizes beautifully with the Leech Ascendancy, and is so impactful that you'll want to pick up a corrupted version with 2 sockets as soon as possible. Then from a defensive standpoint, the first step is capping resistances, so including chaos resistance at around 60% or higher. After that, securing an amulet with the 30 spirit is key, so you can fit all of your reservation skills. Energy shield chest pieces are your next big upgrade. The Vape Shaper works fine for the budget, but eventually you'll want either way a Vile Robe for the raw energy shield, or a Flowing Raiment if you need a mana regen to balance things out. For the offense, the gem level scaling is king, so prioritize plus chaos spell levels on your wand, then also plus to all spells on your amulet, and plus to spells on your focus. And then after the gem levels, the cast speed or the chaos damage also become important. Wands that roll gain extra lightning as chaos are particularly fun, since they enable shocks through the effigy projectiles. Mana regeneration becomes crucial as the gem levels will rise. Rings are the ideal slots for this, and the dream setup is to pair it with the life, cast speed, and the chaos damage, and even strong suffixes like resistances, attributes, or even mana regen. Then for anointing, Reverberation is an excellent and affordable choice to boost the contagion spread radius. Later, if you want more focus on single target or the defenses, the nodes like the Spiral into Insanity or the Calibration are worth considering. And now finally, let's see how do you actually play this build. When you're clearing maps, your flow is simple. Cast the Essence Chain, immediately follow it with the Contagion, and then watch the waves of chaos spread. In packs with weaker enemies, you may find yourself casting Contagion first, so that they don't die before the link is established. But in most cases, the Essence Chain into the Contagion will work best. Once the chains start, you'll often see entire screens wipe out with no further effect. Then for bosses and tough rares, you'll want to slow down and set up, so place first your Dark Effigy totem when they won't instantly die. Then drop your Sigil of Power and curse the ground with Despair. By the time all of these are stacked up, your effigy projectiles will be tearing through the chunks out of the tankiest targets. It will feel slower compared to the big hit builds, but the DPS uptime is much higher, so you can dodge, reposition, or kite while the dots will do their work. Also, one of the most unique mechanics here is the intentional low life setup. Eternal Life lets you drop your health to 35% or even less, and keep it there so as long as your energy shield stays up. So overall, if you're looking for the most powerful and the highest DPS Chaos Lich build, then here it is. This one is an absolute monster of a build, and what makes it a standout is that this is not your traditional minion army build, where you hide behind a wall of skeletons and zombies while waiting for them to do the work. Instead, this build combines the raw destructive force of the storm magic with the army of the empowered minions, curses, and defensive layering that makes you feel like both a commander and a caster at the same time. The campaign experience with this character is incredibly smooth. Early on we use a combination of the flame wall and the skeletal snipers, and then you transition into the raging spirits as your first taste of the proper minion army. By the time that you reach the first interlude, then the build completely evolves into a massive minion army build. These minions don't just add damage, they will shock enemies, debuff resistances, and reduce incoming damage. It's pretty much like a small ecosystem of summons, each one contributing to your survival and the offense in different ways. And then defensively, the Storm Mage build will make the excellent use of energy shield stacking, black chance, and the energy shield recovery. You're also able to apply crippling debuffs to the enemies with the curses and exposure, which effectively doubles our defense, since the monsters will spend less time alive to actually hit you. So let's take a look at our skill gems and the transitions that we need to make. Once you transition into the mid and the late game, the build evolves into something entirely different from its early campaign setup. So at round mapping, temporarily summons like the Raging Spirits or the basic Skeletal Snipers will get exchanged for a full roster of powerful and permanent minions. The first and most important shift happens when you gain access to the Powered Zealots, specifically the Spore Casting variant. Binding one of these specters is a massive turning point, because it essentially replaces the need for the Skeletal Snipers. Then the Zealot Spark attack will flood the battlefield with the lightning projectiles, by scaling perfectly with our curses and ascendancy bonuses, and even providing a foundation of consistent and screen-wide coverage. From there, the army grows more specialized. Skeletal Clerics will join the lineup, healing your entire minions and enhancing the effect of the Master. Then Skeletal Storm Mages become your primary debuffers, by applying shock and dramatically increasing the damage that your entire army can deal. You can also combine this with the Skeletal Brute, whose command skill intimidates enemies, which makes them weaker while amplifying all incoming damage. And then finally, the Skeletal Frost Mage will contribute a vital layer of defense by casting Protective Ice Armor that cuts down the damage that your minions take by almost 50%. By this stage, your gem setup should reflect a mature and synergetic engine. The curses like the elemental weaknesses will not only strip resistances, but also automatically summon spirits, by merging utility and the offense into one smooth action. Then a nerd, which served its purpose early, is eventually replaced by the Convalescence for Sustain. And then when you face pinnacle bosses, projectile acceleration can be swapped for the controlled destruction, to squeeze out even more devastating single target bursts. Now let's take a look at our passive tree, which is built to balance attribute requirements, minion scaling, and the energy shield defenses. Early in the campaign, you focus on picking up enough strength, dexterity, and intelligence to meet the gem and the gear requirements. And after that, the rest of the points should be directed into the strength, which naturally increases your survivability. The key early nodes include the Growing Swarm and the Restless Dead, which improve your minions' damage, defenses, and revive mechanics, by ensuring that they always are present in the combat. The Crystalline Flesh will later bolster your own durability with additional layers of defenses. Then Profane Commander becomes especially important once you begin running with multiple curses, as it extends the radius of your presence aura, while also granting you additional spirit to summon more minions. Then Relentless Fallen is another crucial cluster, which ramps up your minion damage and their movement speed, making them more aggressive and ensuring faster clear speed. Once you reach the post-campaign and enter mapping, your priorities will shift. The tree expands into heavier investment into the maximum energy shield and recovery nodes, allowing you to sustain far more punishments while continuing to scale the minion damage. Respecs are then expected during this phase, but the padding is clear and easy to follow. Then for Amulet instills, the Essence Infusion is the recommended choice, since it's cheap and grants additional intelligence alongside increased recharge rate. But then later, when your build is more developed, then the Warlord Leader becomes more premium option, by offering significant power once you can afford it. Next, let's move into the gear. Your early goal is to cap all the resistances and meet attribute requirements. From there, we prioritize items that add levels to all minion skills. A scepter, helmet, or amulet with this modifier is invaluable because it passively scales the damage of your entire army. A stoic scepter is fine alternative if you cannot find a rattling scepter. As you move into the endgame, you want to look for gear with increased spirit and the flat spirit bonuses. These will allow you to summon more minions simultaneously, which is a direct multiplier for your damage output. The energy shield becomes your next priority, stacking it across body armor, boots, helmet, gloves, and the amulet to form the defensive backbone of the build. And eventually in the late game, you want to transition into using uniques like the Prism Guardian for the block chance, Darkness Enthroned for the socket power, and the Venter's Gamble for the spirit gain from the rings. For offensive scaling, your absolute best modifier is plus levels to all minion skills, followed closely by the spirit modifiers, increased cast speed, and crit chance or the multipliers for your minions. And then for defenses, you want to prioritize cap resistances, maximum energy shield block chance, and even increased energy shield recharge rate. And now lastly, let's see how to actually play this build. Against bosses, you want to begin by pre-buffing your Spectre with the Sigil power and casting elemental weaknesses to strip resistances. You then activate Pen Offering to empower all of your minions, then cast Frost Bomb to apply exposure, and rotate Skeletal Brute and the Skeletal Frost Mage command skills to intimidate enemies and reduce incoming damage. If a fight is really long, then you can refresh it with the Unearth or the Convalescence to maintain the constant pressure. Then in mapping, the rhythm is very fast-paced. Your Spectres and the Skeletal Mages will tear through the packs, while Raging Spirits will fill in the gaps. Every curse cast not only weakens enemies, but spawns more spirits, which makes the gameplay feel like a rolling storm that never runs out of momentum. So this build is absolutely powerful because the demon form got a massive buff in this patch. Not only can you finally use it with the weapons, but now your demon flame stacks now give more spell damage instead of just increased. This little change may not sound huge on paper, but trust me, it transforms the demon form, so now he can delete maps and bosses in seconds. At its core, this build is a lightning caster that just uses the demon form as a damage booster. By channeling spells like the Arc, Spark or the Ball Lightning, you supercharge their output through the demon's form bonuses, so flat levels to all of your spells, insane cast speed and scaling stacks of the demon flames that provide more damage multipliers. That means every single cast will become more destructive the longer you fight, and with the proper sustain, you can keep this form active 24/7. When it comes to bosses, the demon form shines even brighter. The Ball Lightning and the Lightning Warp will work together to create overlapping storms of projectiles, while the shock multipliers and penetration modifiers will make sure that no enemy can withstand the barrage. At the same time, mapping feels effortless, so sparks and chains crisscross across the screen. Then Orb of Storms keep the pressure applied, and Herald effects will ripple through the packs like a thunderstorm. Then defensively, you'd expect the demon form to be risky because of the degeneration, but actually this version turns that weakness into a manageable mechanic. We will stack spell suppression, get our resistances capped, and we've got a build that not only survives in the endgame but absolutely thrives. So let's break down the heart of this build, which are the active skill gems. The centerpiece of course is the demon form itself. We scale it with a cooldown reduction and supports like the second wind, to make sure that the transformation feels smooth and fluid. Once you're in the form, you want to stay there, because all of your real damage will come alive when those wings are out. Then for mobility and clearing, the lightning warp is your go-to. It's one of the flashiest skills in the game. You can literally blink into the packs and explode everything around you in a burst of electricity. The trick here is to scale its cast speed and efficiency so that it feels instant. And once set up properly, you're not just teleporting, you're actually chaining across the maps in seconds. Then next, the Ball Lightning is your primary nuke, and this is where the demon form really shows off. With supports like the faster casting, critical strike scaling and the projectile modifiers, each ball turns into a rolling orb of devastation. Then against bosses, the stacking multiple orbs with a war position will cover them in a constant overlapping hits, and against packs, the sheer density of the bolts will make it impossible for anything to survive. The Orb of Storms will serve as a secondary anchor, so drop it in a fight and continuously apply exposure while zapping around the enemies. This not only adds free damage but also ensures that your critical strikes feel consistent. We also make use of the Lightning Condiant through the cast on critical setup. Every crit will chain into additional bursts, by boosting your damage output even further. It's incredibly satisfying to see the entire screen light up with the synchronized detonations. Then for sustain, you rely on gems like the Clarity and Vitality to help counterattack the demon form's life drain. You want to pair this with the cooldown efficiency scaling in the convalescence mechanic, and now you will find it comfortably to maintain your form without constantly worrying about your HP. And to round things out, the Sigil of Power will provide an empowering zone for both AoV fight and boss encounters. Standing in the circle will give you both the damage and defensive boosts, which will synergize perfectly with the demon's form aggressive playstyle. Then next up, moving over to the passive skill tree. The general goal here is obvious: stack as much lightning damage as possible. Nodes like the Breath of Lightning, Pure Power and Electric Amplification will form the backbone of your scaling. These will ensure that your core skills like the Ball Lightning and the Warp Condiant will hit the kind of density that the demon form needs. On top of that, you're going to pick up the critical strike nodes. The crit not only pushes your baseline damage higher, but it also fuels the cast on critical setups to make your Lightning Condiant detonate like crazy. The synergy is beautiful once it all comes together. A key keystone you'll be taking is the Anchor of the Storm. This grants you a massive buff when your anchor is active, but it does come with a trade-off. You only need to deal lightning damage. That's not a problem for this build, since everything in your kit is pure electricity anyway. Just make sure to avoid items with a straight physical or elemental conversion, as that could mess with it. Then defensively, we will focus into Energy Shield Sustain. Faster recharge start and increased recharge rate will keep your energy shield coming back quickly between the bursts of damage. Combine this with the Convalescence mechanic and this makes your defenses surprisingly steady, especially once paired with the regen gear. Overall, this tree is made to progress naturally through. You get your early damage multipliers, stack in crit chance as gear improves, and then round things out with the Energy Shield Sustain. Next up, let's talk about the gear. For offense, your weapon is everything. You can either way go with a staff or a wand and a focus. And you want to prioritize stats like the plus levels to spell skills, with plus 6 being the dream, and percentage increase to lightning or dispel damage, as well as critical strike chance. The cast speed and mana regeneration will excel quality of life bonuses, but damage scaling comes first. Don't forget to also get plus levels on your amulet, as it is a huge power boost. Defensively, the single most important stat across your gear is the life regeneration. Your demon form will drain you constantly, so you'll want around 180 flat regen per second before the build really starts to stabilize. On top of that, you want to aim for high maximum life and maximum energy shield, since maximum life also increases your spirit and the extra energy shield through the ascendancy, which will push us towards at least 2000 plus life. You'll also want plus spirits on your body armor to fit all of your auras. On top of it, other good sustain options are life per enemy killed, which can roll on rings or the gloves, and they will help us to smooth out mapping before you hit your regen threshold. And also, don't forget about the chaos resistance. The chaos bypasses energy shield, so capping it is vital for our survival. Then for utility, you want to stack maximum mana and increased mana regen to support your heavy casting rotation. Around plus 50 spirit is mandatory as well, so you want to prioritize that on your amulets or armor. And finally, the cast speed round things out by making the entire build feel battery smooth. The gearing priority here is simple: secure a strong weapon first, then lock your sustain through the regen and the chaos resistance, and then polish off your setup with the spirit, cast speed and defensive stacks. And now finally, let's see how to actually play this build. The gameplay loop is insanely fun. For clearing, you'll want to warp through the max by using the lightning warp, and chaining across the screen in the flashes of electricity, while the ball lightning will follow up with the rolling waves of devastation. It feels like you're just using 2 skills, and blinking from pack to pack by detonating them as you arrive. And then against bosses, your setup gets a little more deliberate. Start by dropping the sigil power to empower the area, then place down a couple of orb of storms for exposure and the steady debuffs. Once that's set, you want to weave in together the ball lightning plus the lightning warp by creating overlapping storms of projectiles, while simultaneously warping through them for the bonus explosions. If you made this build properly, then bosses will barely last long enough to respawn. The demon form itself should always be active. You will notice that stacks will climb almost instantly as you transform, and as long as you've hit your regen thresholds, there's no ever reason to change your form, except of course when fixing the bug that we talked earlier about. If you want to play this build, then you will be clearing entire screens with a blink, annihilating bosses in seconds, and looking absolutely incredible while doing it.